Welcome to Muscle Maintenance within Shape Fitness. I'm Coach Kim. Thank you so much for joining me for today's podcast, Strong Lungs, Vibrant Life. We are talking about respiration today. We're talking about the ability for your body to breathe deeply, to move things around internally. When you are exercising, when you're moving your body and your heart rate boosts, your lung capacity has to be more efficient in order to help keep up with that additional level of oxygenated blood that you need into your feet, into your arms, whatever it is you're doing. And so the boosted heart rate and the efficiency of your lung capacity and your breathing is all interconnected. And that's why exercise really is so important. It's not just about, being active in your life, moving around by taking long walks, although those are definitely a big part of it too. You also really want to tax your body's ability to move, to boost your heart rate, to tax your body's ability to move lymph and the oxygenated blood. And the way that you do that is by getting into some compound movements and maybe moving around a little bit vigorously. So hopefully you're ready to get started. We always begin with a postural systems check because very little is more important than making sure that when you're not moving, when you're in one of the many rested positions your body sadly takes during the day, you have good posture. If you're standing up, and if you can, you should stand up now. You want to make sure that your feet are lined up so that your hips, your knees, and your ankles are vertically aligned, essentially. The pelvis, is sort of that rounded plate of bone structure that's at the top of your legs, and your hip muscles, your pelvis sort of jets out to about the hip width, obviously, and then right underneath in your past your quads is your knee, and then down is your ankle. So you want to make sure that you've got that vertical alignment there. And then you also want to think about the position of your feet. It's really easy to try and stabilize your body and deviate from posture in two ways. And I watch this, I'm sort of always watching, observing people as I live in a walking city in New York City where I live. I'm often on the subway or just walking around and watching people as they stand online or wait for the subway or wait for an elevator. You'll see people either shift their body weight to one hip, which is not good for you, or turn the toes out, which widens the basis of your stability. But it can cause problems with pulling on your lower back, pulling on your hip flexors, and then deep internally, you've got the hip rotation and the relationship between your thigh bone, the femur, and the pelvic plate. So that top of the femur, that ball and socket part of your anatomy, is really important in terms of its functional ability. If your resting position is such that you turn your feet out and thus your legs out, you could end up with chronic stress on certain parts of your of that relationship between your legs and your hips. So now let's go up your body a little bit. Think about the position of your pelvis in terms of its rotation, its tilt rather. So a lot of people stick their butts out because they spend all of their day in a chair. So if you stand up and you feel like you can put your hands on your hips, you want your pelvis to be upright. So oftentimes the way I describe that is to tuck in your tailbone, and that just helps elongate your spine a little bit, elongate your trunk, and it helps prevent that slight angle at your hip flexors so that you're fully upright in the right way. All right. Then you want to think about your shoulders and your open chest and the alignment of your head, which if you stare at a screen, maybe you're at a computer for most of your day. Maybe you're driving a car, you're using your phone or some other device for a lot of your computing, your work computing and your communications. And because of that lifestyle change that we've really only exhibited in mainstream life over the last couple of decades, maybe even really in the last 10, 15 years, your head position is a really big inhibitor of the quality of your life, because your center of gravity, which is around your belly button, it has to be stabilized through your vertical alignment. Your head is that vertical ballast. It's the alignment start, right? The basis for your ability to maintain the center of gravity at the right spot. Now, if you forward tilt your head because you're craning your neck, because you're always looking at a screen, or you're always peering out of your window at your car seat, or looking down and forward for the purposes of using your iPhone or your Android, then you are going to alter that center of gravity. So now we've got a postural systems check, and you're breathing deeply in through your nose and out through your mouth, because that engagement of all of your lung capacity is a really big part of your ability to move. And what I want you to do just off the bat here, as opposed to getting started kind of slowly, because I do want to get us keep to the time limit I've set for myself today at 15 minutes. So what I want to do is get your heart rate up. One of the easiest impact ways I find to get your heart rate up is something called a standing bicycle crunch. And if you extend your arms up and out to the sides with your palms open and your fingers splayed, and then widen your foot stance to double shoulder width apart, like a giant X, then bring your left elbow down and across the body as you bring your right knee up to meet it, and then stretch back out. And then bring the right elbow down and across the body as you bring the left knee up and across to meet it, and then stretch back out, and then alternate. This is a standing bicycle crunch. 30 seconds, go ahead and get started. Now, it's not hard. It might not boost your heart rate a ton, but we are interested in elevating your heart rate. So as soon as that 30 seconds is over and you're 12 seconds in, we're going to jump into some jumping jacks. Now, jumping is an issue. A lot of people have issues with jumping. So clearly you want to make sure that you have clearance from the doctor before you set about to do any exercise, any sort of alternate exercise regimens than that what you're already doing. But if you're able to jump, go ahead and get started, because your 30 seconds are up for the standing bicycle crunch. And you can do a standing bicycle crunch anywhere. You can benefit from alternating that standing bicycle crunch by bringing the left arm down when the left knee comes up off to the side and squeeze those obliques, as opposed to the forward squeeze, the forward diagonal squeeze that you get with the opposite arm and leg. A couple more jumping jacks will bring us all the way back around to just past 60 seconds of movement. Now, your heart rate should be up a little bit if you were doing the jumping jacks. And if you weren't doing the jumping jacks, if you choose not to do any sort of jumping, then the other thing that you can do is some forward kicks, or some maybe jogging in place, whatever makes you feel comfortable, because you do want to move the legs in order to boost your heart rate. Again, focus on breathing in through your nose and then exhaling through your mouth. Now, we're going to interact with gravity a little bit, because that's another really great way to naturally boost your metabolism through a boosted heart rate. So the way that you do this is, and I'm going low impact here again, you're going to squat all the way down, or very carefully bend down. Now, you should try to keep your back straight, not bend over, but if you have to slightly, because I want you to put your hands on the floor, walk your hands out until you get to the position known as prone. That's the starting position for a push-up, but I'm not going to make you do one unless you want to. And then you walk your hands back, and then you stand all the way up. And the way that you stand all the way up from a squatted down position is to squeeze your glutes, press your heels into the floor, and keep your back straight. Let's do that again. Now, we call these walkout push-ups or walkout planks, and they will boost your heart rate. Why do they boost your heart rate so effectively? Because you're interacting with gravity. And even though it doesn't seem like the gravity that you feel if you, for example, climb 3 or 4 sets of stairs, your cellular response to the pressure exerted on the trillions of cells in your body is such that you need more energy, you need more oxygenated blood to flush through and help boost the level of activity that supports the movement. It's a really simple notion or function of the intersection between your biology and anatomy, the physics of the movement, and the chemical responses that are required to make sure everything goes well inside of your body. So that is why it's so effective. You're also using multiple body parts. All right, now we've done about a minute of those, a little bit more than a minute, in fact, actually. So let's slow things down. We have just a few more minutes together. We're coming up on 11 minutes. And what I would like you to do now is to get down on the floor and stretch out your back, because your back is likely a little bit, taxed by the movement that we were just doing. If you sit onto your heels and drape your body over your thighs, you're in a pose called child pose. My 90-year-old client likes to rename all of the exercises, so I actually call this the hedgehog. I also have a little girl in my home, and when we do exercises, we give things animal names often too. So hedgehog is a really befitting exercise name for something yoga instructors call child's pose. And if you don't let your elbows touch the floor, but rather you walk your fingers really far away from your body, you get that great stretch of the upper shoulders, upper part of your back and shoulders, and it just feels wonderful. Take those deep breaths in through your nose, fill up your belly. Oh, I have a little bit of a stuffy nose, as I'm realizing. And then bellow the air out through your mouth. Take another really deep breath in through your nose. Pause for a moment, and then bellow the air out through your mouth again. Very good. Now, I want to do one more elevated heart rate exercise, and that is something that you can do either on your feet. It's a mountain climber. You can even really do these on your knees. And the way that you position your body, if you need to do these on your knees, is to position yourself so that you're resting your knees or your lower body on the bottom fleshy part of your quad, of your thigh. You don't want to press down onto the knee bone. All right. And then you're going to move so a mountain climber is where you're in prone position on your hands, and then you move your legs forward and back. Now, if you're on your knees, that's going to be impossible, but you can bring the knee, lift one knee up and bring the right knee around to the right elbow, and then put it back where it started, and then bring the left knee to the left elbow. It's a modified way to move the body in prone position. And again, just like the basic physics of moving the body from the standing position down to the floor and getting back up and interacting with gravity, the compound movement of being in prone position and having that exerted pressure on your trunk is going to elevate your heart rate. And that is the name of the game in terms of practicing the deep breathing, forcing your body. I mean, I could do a whole podcast on meditative deep breathing, to just sitting there thinking about the deep breaths that you need to take in order to detoxify your body, in order to tap into those parts of your lung capacity that almost always go unused because we don't tax the body physically enough anymore. But I'm not the kind of person that relaxes well and just sort of sits around and meditates well, or does any of the capital Y yoga sort of experiences that part of our culture, because I'm always on the go, because I'm always on the move, and I kind of like that. So I like to talk about the way that deep breathing is sort of the partner the yin and the yang with the elevated heart rate component of multi-planar exercises. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast today. Really simple, focusing on a muscle that needs to be maintained. And guess what? You're probably thinking, oh, the lungs, they're not muscle. They're not. But just below your lungs is a muscle called the diaphragm. So we did focus on one muscle, as we like to do with muscle maintenance. And next week, I will turn the focus to a different muscle. But in the meantime, have a great week and make sure that you're inhaling through your nose. Remember to smell the air around you. Hopefully it's fresh air. And then bellow the air out through your mouth. Have a great day. I will see you again soon.